You're listening to the Christ Our Cornerstone Podcast, a ministry of Christ Our Cornerstone Church in O'Neill, Nebraska. I'm Pastor Logan Merrick, and it's our prayer that this message strengthens your faith and draws you closer to Christ. Let's dive in. Hi friends, Pastor Logan here, and I'm so excited. This is the first episode of Christ Our Cornerstone Podcast, and I just wanted to kind of introduce this podcast and tell you a little bit about it. Plus, let's just kind of recap a little bit of Habakkuk since we've gone through the first two chapters thus far. But this podcast is something now that we have established a new website, and there's good things happening. I want to be able to take something where we're no longer just on Facebook Live, but that we can have a place where you can listen to sermons, share them with friends, and also where I can unpack maybe some questions that you guys have and do some like apologetics or just kind of some faith things, faith conversations, Bible studies, books I'm reading, whatever, just kind of like an all-encompassing kind of thing that kind of connects us a little bit more as you guys are in the combine or on the ranch or working at the house or making the long drive to Norfolk, wherever. But each week you're going to hear messages from our worship. From time to time, I also sit down and talk about, just like I said, everyday topics from faith in the workplace, discipleship, rural ministry, or books I'm reading, like I said. But to start things off today, like I said, I wanted to just kind of do a little recap of Habakkuk chapters 1 and 2. And essentially, the entire book of Habakkuk, which is a short book, as we've discovered, is Habakkuk making a complaint about the wickedness going on around him. Now, I want to remind you, when the Charlie Kirk stuff happened, I felt like we needed to pivot and unpack the book of Habakkuk. And so it's a powerful short book, and a lot of people skip over it because they feel like maybe it's not relevant or maybe they don't understand what's going on. But he starts out with this cry of, "Oh Lord, how long shall I cry out for help and you will not hear?" And as I've been talking about with you guys, like how many times have we been in that space where something's going on, whether it's a divorce or whether it's loss of a loved one or it's a diagnosis or it's a financial thing. It can be a lot of different things. Essentially it's just chaos, like in our life, or we see injustice, like the Charlie Kirk murder, or we see genocides, and we see a lot of different things throughout our lifetime. War, if you were a soldier, maybe like you've seen some injustice happening, and that is placed in us by God. By the way, when we see injustice and we see wrongs and they're not being righted, it's been placed in us to know that that's wrong and that there should be justice happening, and that's because God is a God of justice. He is justice, and so therefore we too feel that discomfort of injustice and wanting to see violence come to an end, wanting to see injustice come to an end, wanting to see evil vanquished, all of those things. That's why we love stories of evil being vanquished and all of those things. But what's beautiful about the book is that God answers him, but he answers in a way that Habakkuk does not expect, nor does Habakkuk like. And he says, "I am doing a work in your days that you wouldn't believe if I told you." Now, that gets put on a coffee cup or a t-shirt all the time. And honestly, it's kind of craziness because God is essentially saying, "I'm doing a work, but you're not going to like it." And essentially what he says, and if you've been with us these past couple of weeks, is he's like, "Hey, I'm going to send the Babylonians," because they had been under rule and different things of as far as Israel, and Habakkuk is in Judah, but Israel has already gone into exile, and he's seeing famine, and he's seeing people die, and he's seeing a lot of evil happening, and he's seeing things inside Judah where Jehoiakim is an evil leader, and he's been placed there by Egypt, and he's like, "Lord, you need to do something about this." And he's like, "I am, and I'm sending the Babylonians." And he's like, "The Babylonians? Like, I hear that there's these, they're bad dudes," and they are bad dudes. They're very, very evil. And he's like, "What? Why? Like, you should deal with this, not send more evil." And if you want to know everything that happens in that time, you can read the book of Daniel, you can read Habakkuk, you can read Jeremiah, you can read Isaiah. Isaiah prophesies about this coming, and then Jeremiah and Daniel both talk about those times of exile with the Babylonians. But what's at the heart of chapters 1 and 2 is God reminding his people that he is at work. No matter the chaos going on around us, he's like, you may not even understand how and why and what I'm doing, but I am at work. And God says, the righteous shall live by faith. And that's the important part of what we have to remember, is that's one of the most important lines in all of Scripture. It's quoted in Romans, Galatians, and in Hebrews. And it means that even when things feel upside down, God calls his people to trust him. Not because we can see the plan, but because we know his character. We know what he's about and who he is. And so Habakkuk teaches us to move from fear to faith and from complaint to confidence, because Habakkuk starts this whole book going, do you see this? And then he's like, why do you make me look at this, right? And so with that being said, Habakkuk reminds us to live by faith, and that's the biggest thing. So as you're on your journey that we're all on, as you're walking through life and life gets messy, learning to trust God in the waiting, to believe that he's doing something good even when you can't see it yet. So that's essentially the first 2 chapters, and we're going to get ready to unpack chapter 3 this week. And so I hope this was helpful to you. I'm excited about unpacking more of Habakkuk, but also having this podcast. If you've got questions you want me to dive into or anything like that, please let me know. Feel free to email me. If you're not a part of our church, you live somewhere else, we're glad that you're listening, but I hope you are a part of a local church. And if you're new to the faith or you're still trying to figure things out and maybe you've got questions, feel free to reach out to me at logandmerrick@gmail.com. But so glad that you're here. Check out more about our church at ChristOurCornerstoneChurch.com. And let's continue to walk through things together. Thanks for listening to the first episode of Christ Our Cornerstone Podcast. I'm Pastor Logan, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.